My name is Marcus Webb, and I am 68 years old. I spent 42 years in construction, building homes for families I would never meet. I believed that honest work and raising your children right would earn you a peaceful retirement. I was wrong. 3 days ago, my daughter Stephanie took me to a medical clinic for what she called a routine checkup. When she stepped out to handle some paperwork, the young nurse leaned close to my ear. Her hands were trembling. She told me my daughter was not filling out insurance forms. She told me exactly where Stephanie was and who she was meeting with. 10 minutes later, I was walking out a side exit, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. What I saw in that parking garage made my blood run cold, and then it filled me with a determination I had not felt in years. Before I tell you what happened next, please tell me in the comments where you are listening to my story from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe that family loyalty should never be taken for granted. My visit had started 5 days earlier when my daughter picked me up from my house in Dayton. It was supposed to be a simple trip. I had just finished a round of physical therapy for my knee replacement, and Stephanie had insisted that I come stay with her family in Columbus for a few weeks. "Just until you are back on your feet, Dad," she had said on the phone. Her voice had been sweet as honey. "Derek and I want to take care of you. It will be like old times." Old times. I should have known right then that something was wrong. The old times she remembered were not the same as the ones I remembered. In the old times, she had been a little girl who helped me in the garage, handing me wrenches and asking questions about everything. In the old times, her mother Ruth was still alive, filling our small house with the smell of fresh bread and the sound of her laughter. Those old times ended when Stephanie went off to college and came back a different person. She came back with Derek. When I arrived at their house, my first thought was that I had walked into a magazine. Everything was white or gray. The floors were some kind of polished concrete that made my work boots feel like an intrusion. The furniture looked like it had been designed by someone who had never actually sat down before. There were no family photos anywhere, no clutter, no signs of life, just expensive emptiness. Derek greeted me at the door with a handshake that was too firm and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He was wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my first car. "Great to have you here, Marcus," he said. He never called me Dad. He never even called me Mr. Webb. Just Marcus, like we were business associates. "Make yourself at home," he continued, gesturing at the cold, pristine space. "What is ours is yours." I noticed he said, "What is ours?" Not what is mine. Not what is Stephanie's. Ours. Like everything they had was a joint venture, a corporation, a brand. Stephanie came down the stairs, her heels clicking on each step. She was dressed like she was going to a business meeting, not greeting her father. She gave me a quick hug that felt rehearsed. "Dad, you look wonderful," she said. Then she immediately pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of me standing in the entryway. I must have looked confused because she laughed. "For the family update page," she explained. "My followers love wholesome content." She typed something with her thumbs, probably a caption about her devoted daughter act. I wondered what hashtags she would use. That first night, I barely slept. The guest room was immaculate but cold. The bed was too soft. The silence was too complete. I kept thinking about my own house back in Dayton, the house Ruth and I had bought 35 years ago with a loan from my union credit union, the house where I had taught Stephanie to ride a bike in the driveway, the house where Ruth had taken her last breath, holding my hand. That house was real. This place was a stage set. The next morning, Derek sat me down at the kitchen table. The table was some kind of reclaimed wood, the kind of thing that costs a fortune to look cheap. He slid a folder across to me. The folder was thick with papers. "So, Marcus," he began, his voice taking on that smooth, professional tone that always made me uneasy. "Stephanie and I have been talking, and we want to make sure you are taken care of. Financially. I mean," he opened the folder and pointed to the first page. "We have been working with an excellent financial advisor. Very exclusive. He specializes in retirement planning for people in your situation. My situation." I did not like the way he said that. "What situation would that be?" I asked. He and Stephanie exchanged a glance. It was quick, but I caught it. "Dad," Stephanie said gently. You are getting older. The knee surgery was just the beginning. There will be more medical bills, more expenses. We want to make sure your assets are properly managed. Managed by who? I asked. By professionals, Derek said. People who understand these things. He pulled out a pen and flipped to the back of the stack. We just need your signature here and here. It is all very straightforward. I looked at the documents. Dense paragraphs of legal language. Numbers and terms I had never seen before. What is this exactly? I asked. Just a power of attorney arrangement, Derek said, waving his hand dismissively. It lets us help manage your finances, coordinate your healthcare decisions, standard stuff for families in your position. There was that phrase again, my position, like I was a chess piece waiting to be moved. Let me read it first, I said, reaching for the papers. Derek's smile flickered. Just for a moment, but I saw it. Marcus, he said, his voice tightening, there is really no need. We have already gone over everything with the advisor. It is completely above board. I spent 42 years reading blueprints and contracts, I said. I do not sign anything without understanding every word. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Stephanie put her hand on Derek's arm, a warning touch. Of course, Dad, she said, her voice strained. Take your time. We just want what is best for you. They left me alone with the papers, but I could feel their impatience through the walls. That night, I started reading. I read until my eyes burned, and by morning, I knew something was very wrong. 2 days later, Stephanie announced that she had scheduled a checkup for me at a medical clinic across town. She said it was just routine. She said the clinic specialized in post-surgical assessments. She said I had nothing to worry about. She was lying. I knew she was lying because I had spent those 2 days watching and listening. I watched Derek pacing in his home office, his voice tight and angry on phone calls he thought I could not hear. I heard fragments, payment deadline, collateral requirements, extension denied. I watched Stephanie crying in the bathroom at 3 a.m. Her perfect composure cracked when she thought no one was looking. I found the stack of bills hidden in a drawer in the laundry room. Credit cards maxed out. A second mortgage I knew nothing about. Letters from collection agencies with red stamps that said final notice. This beautiful white house was a beautiful white lie. My daughter and her husband were drowning in debt. And somehow, some way, I was supposed to be the life raft. The clinic was in a sleek building downtown, all glass and chrome. The waiting room smelled like artificial lavender. Stephanie checked me in at the front desk, then told me she needed to step away. Just some paperwork with the insurance coordinator, Dad. You know how it is. I will be right back. I nodded and settled into one of the uncomfortable modern chairs. A television mounted on the wall played some news channel with the sound off. Closed captions scrolled across the bottom of the screen. I was watching the silent news when the nurse appeared. She was young, maybe 25, with kind brown eyes and natural hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag said Denise. She knelt beside my chair, pretending to adjust something on the small table next to me. Mr. Webb, she said quietly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You do not know me, but I know who you are. I looked at her, confused. Your wife, she continued. Ruth Webb. She used to volunteer at the community center on Maple Street, 15 years ago. Do you remember? I remembered. After Ruth retired from the school district, she had spent 3 days a week at that center, tutoring kids, organizing food drives, just being there for people who had no one else. My grandmother brought me there, the nurse said. We had just lost our apartment. My mom was gone. My grandmother was raising me on nothing. Ruth. She took care of us. She helped my grandmother find housing. She bought my school supplies. She told me I could be anything I wanted. She said I was smart enough to be a doctor or a nurse or anything. She even helped pay for my first semester of nursing school before she passed. I remembered now, Ruth had never told me the details. She never bragged about the people she helped. She just did it quietly, faithfully, like breathing. Mrs. Webb saved my life, Denise said, and there were tears in her eyes. So I need to tell you something. Your daughter is not filing paperwork. She is in the parking garage on level 3. She is meeting with a man named Raymond Cross. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Who is Raymond Cross? I asked. He is bad news, Denise whispered. He runs some kind of financial consulting firm, but people around here know what he really does. He gives loans to desperate people. High interest, impossible terms, and when they cannot pay, he takes everything. She glanced toward the door. I heard them talking last week. Your daughter and her husband. They owe him a lot of money, Mr. Webb. And they were talking about your house, about getting you to sign something. She pressed something into my hand, a small piece of paper with an address written on it. That is the building where Cross has his office. I do not know what you are going to do, Mr. Webb, but you need to know the truth. Your wife would have wanted you to know. Then she stood up, smoothed her scrubs, and walked away like nothing had happened. I sat there for a long moment, processing everything. The paperwork, Derek's phone calls, the hidden bills, and now this. Raymond Cross. My daughter was not trying to help me manage my finances. She was trying to use me to pay off her debts. She was trying to trade my house, Ruth's house, for her way out of a mess she had created herself. I stood up slowly. My knee ached, but I did not care. I walked past the reception desk, past the artificial plants and the calming water feature, and found a side exit that led to the parking garage. I climbed the concrete stairs to level 3. Every step was a small agony, but the fire in my chest burned hotter than the pain in my knee. I found a pillar to hide behind, and I watched. Stephanie was there, standing next to a black Mercedes. With her was a man in an expensive suit. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of tan you get from vacations in places regular people cannot afford. His smile was the smile of a predator. Raymond Cross. I could not hear everything they said, but I heard enough. The words house and signature and deadline floated across the concrete expanse. I saw Stephanie nodding eagerly. I saw Cross hand her a folder that looked exactly like the one Derek had shown me. I saw my daughter shake his hand like they were closing a deal. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was the product being sold. I did not confront them. Not yet. I slipped back into the clinic and sat down in my chair like nothing had happened. When Stephanie returned 10 minutes later, all smiles and apologies for the delay, I played my part. I shuffled. I complained about my knee. I asked her the same question twice and pretended not to remember the answer. If they wanted to think I was a confused old man, then that is exactly what I would give them. When we got back to their house, I excused myself and went to the guest room. I said I needed to rest. Instead, I took out my old phone and called the one person I knew I could trust. Her name was Loretta Quinn. She had been Ruth's best friend since childhood. She had also been a paralegal for 30 years before she retired. When I told her what was happening, her voice went cold and hard. "Do not sign a single thing, Marcus," she said. "Not even a grocery receipt. Those papers they showed you. Can you get me copies?" I told her I would try. "Good," she said. "And Marcus, be careful. If this Cross person is who I think he is, your daughter and her husband are in deep trouble, and they are trying to drag you down with them." The next few days were the longest performance of my life. I shambled around their perfect white house like a man who had lost half his mind. I left my reading glasses in the refrigerator. I called Stephanie by her mother's name. I stared at the wall for long minutes at a time, pretending to be lost in confusion. They bought every second of it. Derek actually smiled at me one morning, a real smile. He thought he was winning. He thought I was a senile old man who would sign whatever they put in front of me. What he did not know was that every night, after they went to bed, I photographed those documents with my phone and sent them to Loretta. What he did not know was that I searched for Raymond Cross online and found a graveyard of complaints. People who had lost their homes. People who had lost their life savings. People who had trusted the wrong person and paid for it with everything they had. And what he did not know was that I found something else. Something that changed everything. It happened on the 4th night. I could not sleep, so I decided to take a walk through the house. I told myself I was just stretching my knee, but really, I was looking. looking for anything that might explain how my daughter had become this person. I ended up in the basement. It was the one part of their house that was not pristine. Boxes were stacked against the walls, old furniture covered in sheets, the detritus of life that did not fit their carefully curated image. I found a box labeled Ruth's Things in Stephanie's handwriting. My heart clenched. After Ruth passed, Stephanie had insisted on taking some of her mother's belongings, just to have something to remember her by, she had said. I opened the box. Inside were photo albums, Ruth's old jewelry box, a stack of her favorite books, and at the bottom, a large manila envelope I had never seen before. The envelope was sealed with tape that had yellowed with age. Ruth's handwriting was on the front. For Marcus. To be opened when needed, my hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a stack of legal documents and a letter in Ruth's handwriting. My darling Marcus, the letter began. If you are reading this, then I am gone, and something has gone wrong. I hope I am being paranoid. I hope our Stephanie has grown into the woman we raised her to be. But I have seen signs that worry me. I have seen her choose comfort over character. I have seen her marry a man who values money more than family. And I have seen the way she looks at our house, not as a home, but as an asset. So, I have taken steps to protect you. I have created something called a life estate deed. It means that our house belongs to you for as long as you live. You can live there. You can maintain it. You can even rent it out if you need the income. But you cannot sell it, and neither can anyone else. After you pass, the house will go to the Dayton Community Foundation to be used for affordable housing, not to Stephanie, not to anyone who would see it as just another line on a balance sheet. I know this might seem harsh, but I know you, Marcus. You would give Stephanie everything if she asked. You would give her the shirt off your back. And there are people in this world who would take advantage of that kindness. This is not punishment. This is protection. For you, and in a strange way, for her too. Maybe if she cannot take the easy way out, she will finally learn to build something real on her own. I love you forever, Ruth. I sat on the cold basement floor, and I wept. I wept for my wife who knew me better than I knew myself. I wept for my daughter who had become exactly what Ruth feared. And I wept with relief because Ruth had done from beyond the grave what I had not had the strength to do. She had saved me. The next morning, I called Loretta and told her what I had found. Marcus, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Ruth was one of the smartest women I ever knew. This life estate deed, it is ironclad. Your daughter cannot touch that house. No one can. Not while you are alive. What about after? I asked. Then it goes to the foundation. Exactly as Ruth wanted. Loretta paused. But Marcus, this means your daughter and her husband have been trying to commit fraud. They have been presenting your house as collateral for a debt they cannot pay. If Raymond Cross finds out the house was never theirs to promise, things are going to get very ugly. Good, I said. And I meant it. It was time to end this charade. I told Stephanie that I had thought about the paperwork. I told her I was ready to sign, but I had conditions. I wanted to meet this financial advisor, this expert who was going to manage my retirement. I wanted to look him in the eye and shake his hand before I signed anything. Derek practically glowed with satisfaction. Of course, Marcus, he said. That is completely reasonable. We will set up a meeting for tomorrow. They thought they had won. They had no idea the trap was already set. The meeting was at Raymond Cross's office downtown. The building was all glass and steel, designed to intimidate. The lobby had marble floors and a waterfall feature that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. We were escorted to a conference room on the 15th floor. Cross was already there, sitting at the head of a long table, like a king on his throne. He stood when we entered and extended his hand to me. Mr. Webb, he said smoothly, I have heard so much about you. Your daughter speaks very highly of her father. I shook his hand. His grip was firm and cold. Nice to meet you, I said. I made sure to sound hesitant, confused. Stephanie and Derek settled into chairs on either side of me. Cross sat back down and folded his hands on the table. Now, he said, let us talk about your future. Mr. Webb. Your children have been very concerned about your welfare. They want to make sure your assets are properly protected. He slid a stack of papers across the table. This is a simple transfer agreement, he continued. It places your property into a family trust, managed by your daughter and son-in-law. It ensures that your house is protected from any potential creditors or legal complications. It is really the responsible thing to do at your age. There it was again, your age, your situation, like I was already half in the grave. I reached for the papers and pretended to squint at them. Then I looked up. I have one question, I said. Cross smiled indulgently. Of course. What happens if the house is not mine to give? The smile froze on his face. Stephanie went pale. Derek's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. I am sorry, Cross said carefully. I do not understand. You told me, I said, looking at Stephanie now, that this paperwork would transfer my house into a family trust. But the house is not mine to transfer, my wife Ruth. She was always the smart one. She set up something called a life estate deed 5 years before she passed. I can live in that house until I die, but I cannot sell it, I cannot mortgage it, and I certainly cannot sign it over to you. Stephanie's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Derek looked like he was going to be sick. Cross's predatory smile had vanished completely. He was staring at Stephanie with eyes that had gone flat and dangerous. Is this true? He asked quietly. She stammered. I did not. I had no idea. You told me the house was free and clear, Cross said. His voice was still quiet, but there was something terrible underneath it. You showed me property records. You promised me collateral. That was Derek, Stephanie said quickly, turning on her husband. He handled all the paperwork. He said everything was fine. I trusted him. Derek looked like a cornered animal. His face was red. His hands were shaking. I did not know about any life estate, he sputtered. How was I supposed to know? You were supposed to do your due diligence, Cross hissed. Do you have any idea what you have done? Do you have any idea what I am now facing because of your incompetence? The room erupted into chaos. Derek and Stephanie were shouting at each other. Cross was threatening legal action. His professional mask had completely shattered, revealing the ruthless predator underneath. I sat quietly in the middle of it all, watching my daughter's perfect life implode. There was no satisfaction in it, only a deep, heavy sadness. This was the girl who used to sit on my shoulders at 4th of July parades. This was the woman who had cried at her mother's funeral and promised to make Ruth proud. Somewhere along the way, she had lost herself, and now she was paying the price. When the shouting finally died down, I stood up. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Stephanie, I said. My voice was calm and clear. Your mother loved you more than anything in this world, but she also knew you better than you know yourself. She knew you might one day face a choice between doing what was right and doing what was easy. She hoped you would choose right, but she prepared for the possibility that you would not. The life estate deed is real. I verified it with my own lawyer. The house goes to the Dayton Community Foundation when I pass. It will be used to build affordable housing for families in need. That was your mother's wish, and I intend to honor it. Stephanie was crying now. Real tears, not the performative kind. Dad, she whispered, I am so sorry. I did not. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far, I said gently. You and Derek made choices. You chose to live beyond your means. You chose to borrow money from dangerous people. And when the bill came due, you chose to sacrifice me to pay it. I am your father, Stephanie. I would have given you the shirt off my back if you had asked. But you did not ask. You tried to take, and that is the difference. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a business card. Loretta had given it to me. It was for a debt counseling service that helped people negotiate with creditors. This is a lifeline, I said, placing it on the table in front of her. Take it. Get help. Face your problems honestly. That is the only way out of this mess. I am not pressing charges. I am not going to ruin your lives. But I am also not going to save you by destroying myself. I turned to Raymond Cross. As for you, I said, I know who you are. I know what you do. I know about the families you have destroyed. If I hear that you are targeting anyone else in my community, I will make it my personal mission to expose every dirty deal you have ever made. His face was a mask of cold fury, but he said nothing. Smart man. I walked out of that conference room without looking back. The elevator ride down felt like an ascent. When I stepped out onto the street, the sun was shining. The air smelled like spring. I called Loretta from a bench in the park across the street. It is done, I told her. She was quiet for a moment. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. I feel like Ruth is smiling somewhere, I said. And I meant it. This experience taught me something important, something my wife understood long before I did. A family's true legacy is not the house you leave behind. It is not the money in the bank. It is the values you protect, the integrity you maintain, even when it is hard. Ruth saw the warning signs years before I did. She knew that love without boundaries is not really love. It is enabling. She built a fortress to protect me from my own generous heart. And in doing so, she also gave our daughter a gift, the gift of consequences, the gift of having to face her own choices without a safety net. 6 months later, I got a letter from Stephanie. She and Derek had filed for bankruptcy. They had sold the big white house and moved into an apartment. Derek had taken a job at a regular accounting firm. No more get-rich-quick schemes. And Stephanie, she had started volunteering at a community center, the same community center where Ruth used to volunteer all those years ago. I do not know if we will ever have the relationship we once had, the letter said. But I am trying, Dad. I am trying to become someone Mom would have been proud of. I sat on my porch in Dayton and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Ruth's garden was blooming. The neighborhood kids were playing in the street. My house, our house, was exactly as it had always been, solid, real, full of memories. And somewhere up there, I knew Ruth was watching. She had been right all along. The greatest gift you can give your children is not money or property. It is the courage to let them face the truth about themselves. Even when it hurts. Let me know in the comments what you would have done in my situation. And remember, family is not about what you can take from each other. It is about what you are willing to protect. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Marcus Webb, reminding you that it is never too late to stand up for what is right.